Listen to me now with every fiber of your being. There is a mark upon you that the world cannot see. A mark not written by chance, not carved by human hands, but impressed by God Himself. And I declare to you today that in your left hand there is a million mark, a divine imprint of abundance, purpose and destiny that has been waiting for your faith to awaken it. Many of you have walked through life believing you are ordinary, believing your hands are empty, believing you were born to survive and not to reign. But I stand before you to tell you that God never creates emptiness without intention, never shapes a vessel without a vision, and never places a mark without a future attached to it. When God formed you, He did not consult your past, He did not negotiate with your circumstances, and He did not ask permission from your limitations. God spoke, and you came into being carrying His breath, His authority, and His expectation. That is why you cannot live a small life without feeling restless inside. That is why comfort has never fully satisfied you. That is why even when you achieve something, your spirit whispers, there is more. That whisper is not ambition, it is memory. Your soul remembers the mark. Your spirit remembers the promise. Your hands remember what God placed within them before fear taught you to doubt. The left hand represents what you did not earn, what you did not plan, what you did not calculate. It represents inheritance, not effort. The world teaches you to trust your right hand, your skills, your labor, your intelligence. But God speaks to the left hand, the unseen hand, the hand of grace, the hand that receives. And I declare to you today that in that unseen hand, God has placed a million mark. Not just money, but capacity, influence, wisdom, and multiplication. Many people pray for blessings while refusing to believe they are already marked for them. Faith does not beg. Faith recognizes. Faith does not chase. Faith aligns. Faith does not panic. Faith stands still and declares, God has already spoken. You have struggled not because you are unworthy, but because you have not agreed with what God already decided about you. Heaven is not debating your future. Heaven has already announced it. The delay you feel is not denial, it is development. God allows pressure because pressure reveals value. Gold does not complain in fire, it proves itself. And you too are being proven. Every rejection you endured sharpened your discernment. Every loss you suffered purified your desire. Every tear you shed watered the seed of your calling. Do not despise the process, because the process protects the promise. Some of you were taught to be humble by shrinking, by hiding, by apologizing for your gifts. But God never asked you to deny what He deposited in you. True humility is obedience, not invisibility. When God marks a person, He expects manifestation. When God plants a seed, He expects harvest. When God speaks a word, He expects movement. That million mark in your left hand is waiting for your agreement, waiting for your voice, waiting for your courage to say, God, I believe you more than my fear. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is a decision to trust God when logic fails. The world calculates risk. Faith calculates obedience. The world asks, what if I fail? Faith asks, what if God is telling the truth? And God has never lied. He has never miscalculated. He has never overpromised. If He placed a million mark on you, it is because He trusts you to steward it. God does not give abundance to impress you. He gives it to express His nature through you. Provision is not for pride, it is for purpose. Influence is not for ego, it is for impact. I speak to those who feel overlooked, underestimated, and delayed. God often hides His greatest treasures in ordinary containers. He wraps diamonds in dirt. He conceals destinies in weakness so that no one can steal the glory. You thought your limitations disqualified you, but they are the very reason God chose you. When you are weak, His strength speaks louder. When you lack, His provision becomes visible. When you stand with nothing but trust, God steps in with everything. Your hands have held pain, rejection, and disappointment, but they will also hold abundance, restoration, and overflow. Do not define your future by what your hands have touched in the past. God is a redeemer, not a recycler. He does not reuse broken dreams, he creates new ones. He does not repair old hope, he births living vision. And vision begins when you dare to see yourself the way God sees you. Many people are waiting for permission to succeed, waiting for approval to rise, waiting for conditions to be perfect, but faith does not wait, it moves. The million mark does not activate when everything makes sense, it activates when you step forward in obedience. God honors movement more than excuses. Even imperfect action attracts divine acceleration. When you take one step toward God's promise, He takes 10 steps toward you. You were not born to struggle endlessly. Struggle is a season, not an identity. Poverty is a condition, not a calling. Limitation is a chapter, not the story. God's intention has always been life, expansion, and dominion. When God blesses, He does it thoroughly. When God lifts, He does it publicly. When God opens a door, no force can shut it. And when God marks a person, no circumstance can erase it. Your mind must be renewed to match your destiny. You cannot carry a million mark with a small mentality. You cannot steward abundance while thinking in scarcity. You cannot lead with fear and expect authority to follow. God expands you from the inside before He expands your territory. That is why He challenges your thoughts before He changes your surroundings. What you tolerate in your mind will eventually limit your life. Speak faith even when your voice trembles. Declare truth even when your emotions argue. The atmosphere responds to conviction. Some of you have been praying for miracles while ignoring instruction. God's miracles often come wrapped in responsibility. He gives you vision, then asks you to prepare. He gives you promise, then asks you to discipline yourself. He gives you favor, then asks you to walk with integrity. The million mark is not a lottery, it is a partnership. God supplies the power, you supply the obedience. God releases the blessing, you release the faith. You must stop seeing yourself as a survivor and start seeing yourself as a steward. Survivors think about escape. Stewards think about multiplication. Survivors focus on today. Stewards prepare for generations. God thinks in legacy, not just relief. That is why He stretches you beyond your comfort zone. Comfort produces maintenance. Faith produces momentum. And momentum attracts heaven. Your life is speaking even when your mouth is silent. Your choices are declaring what you believe about God. If you believe He is faithful, you will move boldly. If you believe He is generous, you will live open-handed. If you believe He is powerful, you will not be intimidated by opposition. Fear is not the absence of faith. It is misplaced faith. Redirect your trust from circumstances to God and watch fear lose its grip. I declare that the season of preparation is giving way to the season of manifestation. What you practiced in private will be rewarded in public. What you believed in secret will be revealed openly. What you endured quietly will be honored loudly. God does not forget obedience. He does not overlook sacrifice. He does not ignore tears. Every seed you planted in faith is rising now with acceleration. You must learn to receive without guilt. Some of you feel unworthy of abundance because of past mistakes. But God does not bless you because you are perfect. He blesses you because He is faithful. If grace we re-earned, it would not be grace. Release the shame that keeps you small. Shame is not humility, it is agreement with condemnation. God calls you clean, capable, and chosen. The million mark is not only for you, it is for the people connected to your obedience. When you rise, others rise. When you break limitations, you give permission for others to believe. Your breakthrough is someone else's hope. Your courage is someone else's confirmation. God often uses one life to unlock many destinies. Do not underestimate the ripple effect of your obedience. You are entering a time when opportunities will appear suddenly, when favor will interrupt routine, when doors will open without explanation. Be ready. Prepared faith recognizes divine moments. Do not hesitate when God nudges you forward. Delay is the language of doubt. Immediate obedience creates divine alignment. I speak to your spirit now. Wake up. rise up. Align yourself with what God has already spoken. Lay aside the identity shaped by failure and wear the identity marked by promise. The million mark in your left hand is not symbolic, it is prophetic. It speaks of capacity beyond your background, provision beyond your calculation, and influence beyond your imagination. And as you walk in faith, trusting God completely, that mark will speak louder than your past, louder than your fear, louder than every voice that ever told you that you were not enough. Because God has already declared that you are chosen, empowered, and destined. Indeed, for increase. There is a moment when faith stops being theoretical and becomes confrontational, when belief no longer lives in words, but demands a response from your actions. That moment is now. God is not impressed by what you agree with silently. He responds to what you declare boldly. Heaven moves when conviction speaks. That is why your voice matters. That is why your agreement with God is powerful. When you align your confession with His intention, the invisible begins to rearrange itself to meet you. The mark in your left hand is activated by alignment, not by waiting. Many have misunderstood patience as passivity, but God never asked you to wait without expectation. Waiting in faith is active. It is preparing the ground while trusting the rain will come. It is sharpening the tools before the harvest appears. It is training the mind to think beyond survival and into stewardship. God prepares you before He prospers you so that the blessing does not become a burden. Expansion without maturity creates collapse, but expansion with wisdom produces legacy. You must understand that scarcity is not a sign of holiness, and abundance is not a sign of corruption. God is neither threatened by provision nor limited by need. He gives according to purpose. If your vision is small, your supply will feel small. But when your vision expands to include others, provision finds a reason to flow. God moves resources through those who understand responsibility. He entrusts more to those who see beyond themselves. There are battles you have been fighting that are not external, but internal. You have wrestled with doubt disguised as realism, fear disguised as caution, and unbelief disguised as wisdom. But God does not ask you to be realistic. He asks you to be faithful. Reality describes what is. Faith declares what can be under God's authority. When faith speaks, limitations retreat. When faith stands, opposition weakens. The million mark responds to courage, not caution. You were not called to blend in. You were called to stand out as evidence of God's faithfulness. Your life is meant to testify without explanation. When God elevates you, people may question how, but they will not question who did it. That is why He allows seasons where you are misunderstood. Silence protects the process. Obscurity matures the calling. When the time comes, clarity arrives suddenly. Some of you have been faithful in places that felt insignificant. You served where no one applauded. You obeyed when it cost you comfort. You stayed honest when compromise seemed easier. Do not think God overlooked those moments. Heaven records obedience meticulously. Nothing done in faith is wasted. Every unseen act builds visible authority. When the doors open, it will look sudden to others, but you will know it was cultivated. The mark in your left hand also speaks of creativity. God is the source of all wisdom and innovation. He places ideas in people long before systems exist to support the You carry solutions for problems you have not yet encountered. That restlessness you feel is not dissatisfaction, it is innovation stirring. Do not suppress it. Nurture it with prayer, discipline, and bold thinking. God often answers prayers through ideas placed in faithful minds. You must guard your spirit carefully. Not every voice deserves access to your vision. Doubt is contagious, and unbelief spreads quickly among those who have settled for less. Protect what God has shown you. Vision dies when exposed too early to insecure minds. There is a time to speak and a time to build quietly. God reveals strategy step by step so that dependence remains intact. When resistance increases, do not retreat, refine. Pressure clarifies purpose. Opposition sharpens focus. God allows resistance to confirm direction. If there were no value in what you carry, there would be no resistance against it. The presence of obstacles often confirms proximity to breakthrough. Stand firm. The ground beneath you is stronger than it feels because God is sustaining it. Your past does not disqualify you. It qualifies you to speak with authority. What you survived becomes credibility. What you overcame becomes instruction. God does not erase your story, He redeems it. Nothing is wasted when surrendered. Even your mistakes become lessons when humility leads. Do not be ashamed of where you came from. Be grateful for how far God has brought you. There is also a discipline required to carry increase. G. OD blesses order. Chaos repels clarity. If you desire expansion, you must cultivate structure in your thinking, consistency in your actions, and integrity in your decisions. Discipline is not restriction, it is freedom with direction. When your life is aligned, blessing flows without obstruction. Some are waiting for a sign when God is waiting for surrender. The greatest breakthroughs often follow the simplest acts of obedience. When you release control, you gain alignment. When you let go of fear, you receive clarity. God does not force His will, He invites partnership. The million mark becomes active when your will agrees with His purpose. You are entering a season where discernment will matter more than effort. Not every opportunity is assignment. Not every open door leads to purpose. Ask God for wisdom, not just success. Wisdom protects increase. Without wisdom, abundance becomes distraction. With wisdom, abundance becomes influence. I declare that your capacity is increasing, your understanding is expanding, your confidence in God is deepening. You are no longer reacting to circumstances, you are responding from conviction. Faith is becoming your default language. Courage is becoming your posture. Expectation is becoming your atmosphere. The mark in your left hand is also a reminder that what you receive freely must be given responsibly. God's blessings flow through generosity, not hoarding. When you trust God as your source, you are not afraid to release. Giving is not loss, it is circulation. What is released in faith returns with increase. You must reject the lie that says it is too late. Time is not your enemy when God is involved. He restores years with precision. He accelerates progress without stress. What would take others decades, God can accomplish in moments when alignment is present. Delay does not cancel destiny. Stand now with a renewed sense of authority. Lift your expectation, align your actions, speak with conviction, walk with confidence. The million mark is not dormant, it is responding to your faith. And as you continue to trust God fully, surrender completely, and move boldly, your life will become undeniable evidence that God still marks, still calls, still empowers, and still releases abundance through those who believe Him without reservation. There is a dimension of trust that God invites you into, where certainty is no longer based on evidence, but on intimacy. When you know God, you stop needing constant confirmation. You move because you recognize His voice, not because the path is clear. Clarity often comes after obedience, not before it. God values trust more than comfort, and He develops leaders by stretching them beyond familiarity. That is why your assignment has demanded faith at every turn. Familiarity dulls dependence, but uncertainty sharpens it. You must recognize that authority is not loudness, it is alignment. When your life is aligned with God's will, even your silence carries weight. Environments respond to spiritual authority long before words are spoken. That is why some doors open without explanation and some battles end without confrontation. God goes before those who walk in alignment, removing resistance before it becomes visible. The million mark carries that authority. It is not aggressive, but it is undeniable. There are seasons when God intentionally allows you to feel alone so that you learn to rely on His presence rather than human affirmation. Crowds can celebrate you today and abandon you tomorrow, but God remains constant. When you learn to draw strength from Him alone, you become unshakable. Isolation is not abandonment, it is training. God separates before He elevates, so that your confidence rests in Him and not in applause. You are not late, you are being synchronized. God works with precision. He aligns people, places, and moments so that when the release comes, it produces maximum impact. What felt like delay was actually divine timing, aligning unseen elements. When the moment arrives, it will feel effortless, but it was prepared meticulously. Trust the timing that does not need your approval. There is also a call to emotional maturity in this season. God does not entrust influence to those who react impulsively. Stability attracts responsibility. When you master your responses, you gain authority over your environment. The ability to remain calm under pressure is not weakness, it is strength refined. God shapes character before He releases capacity. Your identity must remain rooted in who God says you are, not in what you accomplish. Success is a servant, not a master. When identity is anchored in God, success does not intoxicate you and failure does not define you. You move with balance, knowing that everything flows from Him and returns to Him. That posture protects the mark from corruption. You are also being invited to think generationally. God's blessings are never meant to end with you. He sees beyond your lifetime. He plans for impact that outlives you. That is why He instructs you to build with wisdom, to speak with clarity, and to act with integrity. Legacy is not accidental. It is intentional obedience over time. Some of you will be called to stand in places where integrity is tested quietly. You will be tempted to compromise for speed, recognition, or convenience. Resist. God honors purity of motive. Shortcuts may promise speed, but they steal stability. What God builds slowly lasts longer. Trust His pace. Your sensitivity to God's guidance will increase as you learn to quiet unnecessary noise. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves your response. Discernment is knowing what to ignore. Peace is preserved by selective focus. God speaks most clearly to those who listen intentionally. You must also prepare for responsibility. Increase attracts accountability. When God expands your influence, He also expands your responsibility to represent His character. How you treat people, how you handle pressure, how you respond to opposition, these become visible testimonies. The million mark is not just about receiving, it is about reflecting God's nature through your conduct. I speak to the fatigue you have felt deep within. You have grown weary, not because you are weak, but because you have been carrying vision without enough rest in God's presence. Strength is renewed when dependence is restored. Return to that place of stillness where trust is rebuilt. God restores strength quietly before He releases power publicly. You are being repositioned even if it feels uncomfortable. Shifts often feel like loss before they feel like gain. God removes what no longer aligns so that what does can take its place. Release without resentment. What leaves was not meant to sustain you in the next season. Your faith is becoming refined. You are no longer impressed by noise or intimidated by silence. You are anchored. When storms come, you do not panic, you discern. When opportunities arise, you do not rush, you pray. This maturity is evidence that God is preparing you for weightier assignments. The million mark is a reminder that you are trusted. God trusts you with influence because He sees your heart. He trusts you with resources because He knows your intention. He trusts you with people because He knows you will lead with humility. Trust from God is the highest endorsement. As you continue forward, let gratitude remain your posture. Gratitude keeps your spirit open. It reminds you of God's faithfulness and guards against entitlement. Every step forward is grace. Every opportunity is mercy. Gratitude aligns your heart with heaven's rhythm. I declare that your discernment will be sharp, your courage unwavering, your obedience swift, and your trust deep. The mark in your left hand continues to awaken, respond, and manifest as you walk in alignment, humility, and unwavering faith in God, knowing that what He has begun will unfold with precision, power, and purpose as you remain yielded, attentive, and fully surrendered to His will and timing as the unseen becomes visible and the promise unfolds in ways beyond expectation and measure as your life continues to testify silently and powerfully to the faithfulness, sovereignty, and generosity of God, who marks, calls, and releases those who trust Him without reserve and walk forward without fear into the unfolding future He has already prepared and secured in His perfect wisdom and authority, without hesitation or retreat, as you move steadily onward in faith, trusting God completely and allowing every step to align with His purpose and design without doubt or retreat, and with full confidence that what is unfolding now is only the beginning of what God intends to reveal through your life as you continue to walk forward without looking back, trusting Him entirely and allowing His will to lead every step as the Imar continues to speak and the journey continues to unfold without end. Now is the moment to stand still within yourself and ask the question that changes everything. Have you been living according to convenience or according to calling? God is not distant from this moment. He is present, attentive, and inviting. He is not asking for perfection. He is asking for alignment. He is not demanding performance. He is calling for surrender. Examine your heart honestly, because truth is the doorway to transformation. What you acknowledge, God can heal. What you surrender, God can restore. What you trust to Him, He can multiply. Let this be the moment you release the weight you were never meant to carry alone. Lay down fear that has disguised itself as wisdom. Lay down excuses that have sounded reasonable but kept you stagnant. Lay down the identity shaped by pain and receive the identity shaped by God's intention. You do not need to become someone else. You need to return to who you were created to be. God's voice has never left you. It has been waiting for your stillness. Renew your purpose by renewing your trust. Purpose is not discovered in striving, but in yielding. When you walk closely with God, direction becomes clear, even when details remain hidden. Obedience becomes lighter when love leads. Let your life be reordered around what matters eternally. Let your priorities reflect your faith. Let your choices echo your conviction. God responds to hearts that are fully turned toward. Do not leave this moment unchanged. Faith that is stirred but not acted upon becomes regret. Courage begins with a decision. Decide to walk differently. Decide to speak differently. Decide to trust God more deeply than you trust your fears. The mark upon you is calling for movement, for agreement, for bold obedience. Step forward not because you see the whole path, but because you trust the one who does. Carry this truth with you. God has marked you, God is with you, and God is faithful. Walk in humility, move in courage, and live with expectation. Let your life become a quiet yet powerful declaration that when a person fully yields to God, limitation loses its authority, purpose rises with clarity, and destiny unfolds with undeniable power as your steps align with His will and your heart remains anchored in unwavering trust in God.